What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to your stimulus package update and daily news report for Saturday, February 26th. We got a lot of stuff that we need to discuss today because right now a lot of people are asking about new stimulus. So I'm going to do my best. I will try to provide you with some new reports on where we could see additional stimulus and relief very soon. I also want to give you an update on the $4,200 child tax credit payments. We're going to talk about the Russia-Ukraine war news as well. And obviously, the U.S. is right in the middle of that, like always. So, got some daily news there as well. First off, if you can do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these videos. But let's get right down to it. So, people keep on asking, is there going to be any new stimulus? Well, the typical stimulus checks, those are not coming. But many states are actually providing some relief. What we found out recently is that many states are actually refraining from increasing the state's gasoline tax, which is actually going to save us a little bit of money. So instead of increasing the gas tax, they're actually going to provide more funding to things like schools and even the environment. So here are some states that are still providing some relief because they do have a surplus of cash, and so they're investing it back into their residents. For instance, what we know is Illinois. They have proposed a $1 billion tax relief bill. Now, this plan includes a 1% sales tax elimination on things like groceries. They are also going to freeze the state's gas tax at its current rate. There's a 1-year waiver on healthcare workers and liquor license fees, and there's also a one-time property tax rebate. That's actually very interesting. Now, one thing I have been reading about is more states are looking into waiving property taxes for potentially 1 year. So that's interesting because that could save many homeowners thousands of dollars, or this could prevent landlords from raising rents. So that could be a very big move to try to keep housing more affordable, at least in the short term. We also know Idaho. They plan to lower individual and corporate tax rates from 6.5% down to 6%. And they want to reduce the number of individual brackets from 5 to just 4. In Maryland, they announced a budget that includes $4.6 billion in tax cuts. At the center of this is a 6-year plan to eliminate income taxes on state residents over the age of 65. Now, I want to touch on this for a second because this is one of the things that I've been saying for quite some time. Is as people get older and they do rely on a fixed income, taxing those incomes, whatever it may be, becomes very difficult for the majority of people. Now, there are some that get older, they live a very good life, right? Have a lot of investments, making good money at older ages, but that's a very small percentage of people. So, one of the things that I've been saying for quite some time is by eliminating the tax that older residents pay, it would make more sense. Now, is it going to eliminate everything? Probably not. But could we reduce taxes as you get older? Yes, we easily could. But it seems like not many people want to do that. So we'll see what happens here, but that's a big move from Maryland. We also know the Mississippi governor is proposing to eliminate the income tax. Here's the issue. The Mississippi governor is proposing to eliminate the income tax. However, the Senate is planning a more modest proposal where the income tax would be somewhat trimmed, but they would also lower other fees as well. So a little bit of a difference. So those are just some of the newer proposals that are actually going out. We know there's still money going to residents in Oregon. There's likely money to be going to residents in California, New York. There's money going everywhere. But these are just some of the newer things. Now, I want to address one of the newer proposals as well. This has to do with the child tax credit payments because previously, Senator Mitt Romney, who's a Republican out of Utah, he was proposing the Family Security Act. This would have provided parents with a monthly check of $350 per child per month. Now, this proposal did have some bipartisan support, but he wanted it to have more support from Republicans, so he revised it just recently. Now, I did a video on this earlier on this week where I addressed some of these things, but here's how the revised version of this proposal would look. The first thing and the biggest change is that he wants to include a work requirement for the child tax credit payments. He is saying that this is essential because both Republicans and moderate Democrats want to move forward with it, but they don't have the numbers. Senator Joe Manchin, he's been working on different proposals, but none of them actually move forward because he does have certain issues. One of the issues with the child tax credit payments is there's no work requirement, which means how do you get a tax credit if you are not working? So what he's saying is Democrats completely change what a tax credit should be in order to get it to work for them. Right now, he says, or currently there's about 30 Senate Democrats that would support the child tax credit payments with a work requirement attached to it. So we need about 20 to 21 Republicans in order to support this as well to get it to pass. This would be if it's done through a budget reconciliation. If it is not done through a budget reconciliation, that means they need to get to 60 votes, which means 30 Democrats means 30 Republicans. Here's the one issue. The one issue, though, is if we see it turn into a bipartisan bill where half Republican, half Democrat vote yes, this would likely favor Republicans because it took a Republican and Republican support to get it passed. So here's the issue. Democrats might not want to see this pass if it's coming from a Republican. So it's very clear at this point that with this particular bill, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer might not even put this on the floor because, again, it's going to come down to these political games that we'll play over the next, 7 months, 8 months until we get to the midterm elections. So that's currently where we're at regarding stimulus. And now for the not so good news. Let's talk about what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. Because today, the French President Emmanuel Macron, he said this morning that France will be impacted by the Russian invasion into Ukraine. He said that this is going to have a long-lasting and serious consequence for the French farming sector. And he added, and I quote, "If you ask me to share one conviction with you this morning, it is that this crisis is here to stay. This war is here to stay." And currently, French officials say that the trade restrictions put in place by the EU, the European Union, these sanctions will weigh heavily on French exports such as wine and grains. But the energy prices will hit livestock farming very soon. Now, even though we are seeing an isolated invasion in one country, every country in the world will now be impacted by commodity prices. Things are going to change. Things will get more expensive, and we are going to have to live with it. We also know that the capital city of Kyiv, which made it through the night, luckily, is still under Ukrainian control. At least that was the most recent report that we've received. Western officials have actually offered to help the Ukrainian President Zelensky to evacuate the city. However, he stated that that's not what he needs. He doesn't want to ride out of Ukraine. He needs more weapons. That's what he needs. So he is staying. He's going to help fight with the Ukrainian citizens, and he's going to try to hold off Russia for as long as humanly possible. Now, one thing that many officials believe is that the West needs to impose stiffer penalties on Russia. And according to think tanks, Russia's economy would be hit the hardest by energy sanctions. They also believe that energy sanctions will have very little toll on the European Union. This think tank states that an embargo on gas would actually drag Russia's GDP down by about 3%. However, they did state that cutting off Russia's oil and gas would only hurt Europe if the supply couldn't be replaced by allies. So that's the big question. is, could the supply be replaced by allies, by the United States, by other countries? So that's really what's being asked is, could we do this? And according to the recent reports, after a lot of this stuff was discussed, is what the United States is trying to figure out is, how can we here in the US lower our gas prices, but also help Europe as well? Because one of the big things that will, according to reports, will stop Russia, or at least delay them, is if we do sanction oil and gas. So we'll see what happens there, but that's the big news out of this morning, is what could we do or what should we do? So we'll see. Now yesterday, of course, there was another threat made to the US and Europe by Russia. We heard from the Russian space chief, and he made it clear that the International Space Station's location is currently under Russian control. And he had this to say. Listen to this, and I quote, "If you block cooperation with us, who will save the International Space Station from an uncontrolled deorbit and fall into the United States or Europe? There is also the possibility of a 500-ton structure falling on India and China. Do you want to threaten them with such a prospect? The International Space Station does not fly over Russia, therefore all the risks are yours. Are you ready for this?" So he is pretty much threatening the US, saying that the International Space Station doesn't fly over Russia. We could just drop this onto the US or Europe or even India or China. And then could the US be in a war with China? Right? That's what he's saying. Major threat. Now, could we just simply cut off ties with Russia? Is this even possible? Could we continue to operate our space program without Russia? Well, a former NASA astronaut, he actually told CNN yesterday that no, that is not possible. He had this to say, and I quote, "The Russian segment can't function without the electricity on the American side, and the American side can't function without the propulsion systems that are on the Russian side. So you can't do an amicable divorce. You can't do a conscious uncoupling." So that's a major issue, is the two sides can't work on their own. They have to be together, because we got the electricity on the American side, we got the propulsion system on the Russian side, which both are very important. So here's what I can tell you right now. Right now, there's still a lot of discussions as to how much more can the U.S. do without risking, ourselves. That's the big issue. So we're going to see what happens moving forward, but that is what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on, share all the latest news and updates. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.